Sit down and grab your lunch. It's time for the Bolts Brown Bag, the only show where you make the call.
Good afternoon and welcome to Bolts Brown Bag. I'm Jared Aarons. I know it's a brown bag show, and today we're hoping that you're still using those brown bags for your lunch and not to put over your heads. After the Chargers have a 23-20 loss on Sunday to the Kansas City Chiefs, and now we get Denver on Thursday night, and the sky seems to be falling. It's even overcast right now, and with that in mind, we welcome in Chris Ello as my co-host today. Chris, your first take on the Chargers and the Chiefs from yesterday. What was your initial reaction to the loss?
Well, my first take is where's Ben today? Because obviously he gives up on the team after one loss, and he's not here today. Yeah, he's a fair weather fan. Actually, we're going to hear from Ben in just a little while. We'll tell you where he is. It was pretty simple to break down yesterday. I mean, when you lose. When you don't play Jason Verrett at one cornerback because he's injured and can't play, and then you lose Brandon Flowers early in the game on that amazing collision in the end zone with Jamal
such
Charles.
a great hit.
That was a great collision. I'm just glad I wasn't a part of it. It was fun to watch. But you lose him to a concussion. So now you're without your cornerbacks, and you can't really run the kind of defense that you want to run. So you can't get off the field. And Kansas City is – you ran into the perfect wrong team at the wrong time. Kansas City is already a ball control team that wants to be able to just run it, kill clock. Kansas City doesn't even care if they score. They just want to keep the ball for as long as they can.
Well, and Andy Reid even said after the game, seeing the way that San Diego plays offense, the best defense might have been just to keep the offense off the field, and that certainly seemed to be their game plan, even in the first quarter when neither offense really seemed to be able to get anything going.
It's always Andy Reid's game plan. Is just keep the ball away from the other team's offense. Don't make mistakes, and don't let them get the ball. And so the Chargers were unable to get off the field yesterday. It was pretty obvious. I mean, the time of possession at the end of the game, 39 minutes to 21, didn't even tell you the story how bad it was, because at the end of three quarters, the time of possession was 36 minutes to 11.
Yeah.
So it was, or just into the fourth quarter. So the Chargers actually gained on some of the possession time in the fourth quarter, but Kansas City's just on the field too long. It was a simple loss to explain, and it's okay. I've not yet seen, except for the 72 Dolphins, nor has anybody seen a team run to a Super Bowl without a couple of hiccups along the way. I don't know that this is a Chargers Super Bowl team this year, but I think they still have a chance if they get healthy. And they're probably going to get healthy, but they're not healthy right now.
You say it was a simple loss to explain. I say we've still got at least 27 minutes to talk about this loss, so we'll make it a little more complicated.
Oh, no, I just wrapped it all up. That was.
We haven't even given people time to open their lunch and join with us. But your explanation seems pretty succinct. We want to know what your explanation is out there, though. Go to our website, 10news.com, Bolts Brown Bag, and vote in our poll. We're asking a very simple question. What do you think was the reason for the Chargers' loss? Was it their offense, their defense? Was it injuries, or was it penalties? And
or there's an E. There's even also an E category. You can blame Chris Ello if you'd like to, because people do seem to like to blame me for stuff. And I did pick the Chargers at the beginning of the season to win this division, get into the Super Bowl. So I know that anytime the Chargers
it's going to be your fault.
It's my fault. So you can vote E even though it's not one of your choices.
E for Ello.
E for Ello, that's right.
We've had some people already vote, and I'd like to read some of those right now as to who's to blame for the loss. Rashad Pouncey tweeted, I believe Pagano's conservative play call on third down lost the game. He only rushed 4 and should have sent everyone.
Can I just comment on that real quick?
Absolutely,
because I think
by all means.
I think he could only rush 4 because he didn't have his cornerbacks.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, again, don't forget, you got to know the personnel that you have. And if you don't have any of your 3 cornerbacks, Sharice Wright didn't play either. So you have any of your cornerbacks, you have to cover with 7. You can't take a chance to cover man for man when you don't have any of your cornerbacks. So that's why they couldn't blitz yesterday. That's why they couldn't rush the quarterback. All right, anyway, I'm sticking up for Pagano on that one.
No, that's quite all right. And I think the other thing, that since you're mentioning injuries to me, and I know he came back in the game and played, but once Corey Liuget went down, he had that little injury where he was out for a few plays, but once that happened and he seemed to be worn down a little bit, you weren't getting any pressure with the front four. Remember, they had 3 sacks in the first half, the Chargers did, and seemed to be harassing Alex Smith a lot more, and that stopped at about the midway point of the third quarter. To me, it seemed to stop when Legion went down. It seemed to stop when Flowers went out of the game after the concussion.
Sure.
And they just weren't able to, with those next men in, or even with the guys coming back but playing a little dinged up, get the kind of pressure on the offense that they had wanted to and had been able to in the first half when they were in the lead.
And let's not also forget there's always another team on the field.
Mm-hmm.
I think we get so tunnel visioned, with our team. We're 5-1. We're going to win today. We're going to be 6-1. We don't realize we're playing another team out there that's actually getting paid money to try and win the game. And Alex Smith was the number 1 overall pick in the draft for a reason. Now, I know he hasn't gone on to have a Hall of Fame type of career. We know him well from Helix High School here in San Diego and then the University of Utah. But this is still a capable player, Alex Smith, and he ran around a lot yesterday and made it hard for the Chargers to get him. He scrambled for some big plays and kept some plays alive.
To your point, people tend to call Alex Smith a lot a game manager. And I think a more appropriate thing, and I read this today in one of the columns, is he's more of a chain mover than a game manager. He's not really going to light up your stat sheet or throw the deep bombs that we seem to expect every quarterback to be able to do, but he keeps the chains moving. He plays within himself, and he does
what Andy Reid wants.
Exactly.
Andy Reid doesn't want an 80-yard touchdown pass.
No.
Because that gives the ball back to the other
team. Absolutely.
That's right. He wants 10, 11 yards and then keep the thing going. Alex Smith played a tremendous game yesterday, and so did Jamal Charles, and so did a lot of guys that the Kansas City Chiefs have.
Jamal Charles, I think it was 154 yards, which is the most the Chargers have given up on the ground all year.
Yes.
We mentioned the injuries again. Angelina Nunez about our poll on Facebook. Come on, look at the injuries. We need our players back. So another person that agrees with you, and Luis Contreras also on Facebook. Our defense was bad because half of the starters are hurt. And injuries are one thing, and I know if you ask players, and we've talked to a lot of players over the years on various teams and all different places, if you talk to players, they'll never use injuries as an excuse. They will always say, every team has injuries, and we need to be able to play through those injuries. To me, another thing aside from injuries in yesterday's game that really seemed to hurt the team was penalties. And not that they had so many. They only had 4 penalties, but they always seemed to come at the absolute wrong time, and they always seemed to have a very big impact on the game. You think about the roughing the passer penalty on a 3rd and 15 that extended a drive that ended in points.
Right.
You think about the game-winning drive for the field goal. That was the Corey Liggett penalty that was on a third.
Still was a little iffy here.
It still was a little iffy. Yeah, but you look at penalties that extend drives on 3rd down. It's hard enough to try and get off the field in the NFL, in the
on
league.
A day when you couldn't get off the field.
Absolutely.
That was the last thing you could afford to do was keep them on the field with penalties. And I'm going to tell you,
those are the type of penalties that aren't characteristic of this Chargers team this year. Why do you
hasn't
think
been
they
the case.
happened yesterday?
Oh, I have no idea. I mean, it just might have been one of those deals. But to me, you go back to that last drive of the game. Kansas City's backed up on its own 8-yard line. They had 1 timeout left. Andy Reid, the ultimate coach who has no guts at all,
absolutely,
is not going to try to score in that situation. He's going to run the ball, run the clock out, and then play for overtime. But unfortunately, Liggett picked up the face mask penalty. That moved the ball all the way out to the 32-yard line. It got them out from the shadow of the goal line out to the 32. That's when Kansas City said, well, okay, maybe we'll take a shot at it. And they completed some passes. But I don't know why the penalties yesterday. I mean, I think it's a good point. Look, players will never admit to looking ahead to the next opponent, right? But Denver's the next opponent coming up on Thursday. That's a huge game. Maybe they're looking a little ahead to Denver, but I mean, does that really explain 4 penalties? I don't know that I can explain.
I don't know that it does. We've talked enough about this. Let's bring in 10 News' own sports director, Ben Higgins, to get his thoughts on the game. Ben, you're not here. Chris says it's because you've given up on the team after a loss. I say it's because
you're a fair weather fan. You leave as soon as they lose a game. What's up with that?
The reality is you're serving your civic duty today, Ben, and we appreciate you for it.
And proud to do so. I'm in the mostly empty jury lounge at the Vista Courthouse and bothering a few of my fellow jurors on our lunch break. Hopefully they don't mind too much, but very happy to do it. Didn't realize my civic duty would take parts of 2 different weeks here, but at least we get to chime in during the Bolts Brown Bag today.
All right, so chime in. What was your thoughts on the game, and why do you think this one turned out the way it did?
Well, as usual, Chris could not be further from the truth. In fact, last week, I actually predicted that the Chiefs were going to win this game. And in fact, I said they're going to win it by a field goal. I said 27-24, so I was a little bit off. But I just saw a Chargers team that is just getting beaten up and bruised by injuries, coming off a tough divisional game. Those are always the most physical in the National Football League. And at some point, it's just going to have to catch up to them. It did yesterday. You know, it's probably going to catch up to again on a short week in Denver on Thursday, but it doesn't mean the season is over. It doesn't mean this isn't still a good football team. When I made the prediction, I said, hey, even if the Chargers lose, they're still a good football team. Do they have flaws? Sure. Every team in the National Football League has some flaws, and we saw some of those on display for the Chargers, and they're going to have to work on it. Offensive line, they're going to have to do a little better job stopping the run, and they cannot continue to kill themselves on third down with their own penalties. I thought that was the biggest difference in the game yesterday by far.
When you guys go back to deliberate in the jury room this afternoon, who are you going to be deliberating about here? Is it going to be the offensive line? Is it going to be the defensive line? Because whatever case you're supposed to be working on, I know you can put that off for a couple of hours while you deliberate on how the Chargers are going to get out of this and somehow get ready for a powerhouse-looking Denver team in just 3 days.
Well, right now, Chris, the Chargers' offensive line is guilty of not being very good. They were ranked fourth by the metrics last season in all of football. They're all the way down to 30th, one of the worst offensive lines. They're going to have to do a better job both protecting Phillip Rivers, who does an amazing job getting rid of the ball and not taking too many sacks. But for him to do the damage that he's supposed to do, he needs a little bit of time, open up a couple of more holes. Still very impressed with Brandon Oliver. But, hey, the one thing that the Chargers do have going for them, they apparently have a pretty good offensive line coach in Joey D'Alessandris. He got that unit together by the end of the season last year. Now he's got to do it without Nick Hardwick, which makes it a lot tougher, obviously. But given a few more weeks, I think the Chargers can get the offensive line in shape, and that's going to be a huge key.
And you look at even some of the injuries there. You've got Ornberger filling in at center now and doing the best he can, so certainly there's room for improvement there. But now you have the short turnaround, Ben, and let me ask your thoughts on this. Everybody seems to have chimed in on why Thursday night games are bad for football in terms of the quick turnaround by the teams and what you're able to do. What do you think about having to turn around now if you're the Chargers? You have today off, you practice Tuesday, you practice Wednesday, you fly Wednesday, and then you play Thursday.
Well, I think it's a big advantage for the home teams. So is it unfair for the home teams? No. They get to take a team that has a short week of preparation, has to throw in a flight, however far that is, which makes it even more difficult out of their normal routine. So I think it is tough for the road teams. And the Chargers drew the short straw. They've had some of these home games before, but eventually everyone's got to play one. You're going to play some at home, some on the road. Unfortunately, this one comes at a bad time for the Bolts. After two divisional games, and then you go on the road against one of the best teams in football, obviously, with Peyton Manning. That's going to make it difficult.
So
what was I wrong about? You said I was completely wrong about everything I said. I want to go back to that point you made.
You're wrong about the fact that I've lost faith in this team.
Oh, okay.
Even if they lose on Thursday and they're 5-3, I still think they're in good shape going into the second half of the season. Okay. They're going to have time to get healthy.
But you're calling a loss already, Nick, on Thursday. You're calling no chance they can survive this one.
I'd expect. You know what? The only reason to have any faith in Thursday night's game is the fact that Chargers have done it before. They did it last season. So we know it's possible. We know that the Chargers tend to play good games against the Broncos. They're close divisional games. But, hey, yeah, look at everything going on right now. The Chargers are battered. Are they going to have any of their starting cornerbacks against Peyton Manning in that offense? Probably not, with Brandon Flowers suffering the concussion and Jason Verrett still out. It's not a good situation to be in. But, hey, the Chargers could give them a game. And if they do win, guess who everyone's going to be talking about again as one of the best teams in the league. And if they don't, well, they're still 5-3. They got a week and a half off to get ready for Miami. They got a bye week after that to get healthy. They got a couple of easier games at home in the Raiders and St. Louis coming in. You know what? They have a chance to still be okay no matter what happens on Thursday.
So what do you think then if they do have, and I'll ask this to you, Chris, as well, if they do have all these injuries, all these players out, how do you put a game plan together to stop Peyton Manning and that Denver Broncos aerial attack with so many injuries?
Well, they got to do what they've done so well for most of the season until yesterday, and that is control the clock, time of possession. I mean, that was the Chargers' recipe for victory. And yesterday they lost it by 20 minutes. The Chiefs held the ball for almost 40 minutes of that game. When the Chargers were moving it on the ground, those 2 fourth-quarter drives when Brandon Oliver was getting it and breaking some tackles and the Chargers were making first downs, they looked fine. Yeah, they got to finish those with touchdowns and not field goals. But, hey, if you keep Peyton Manning off the field the way the Chiefs kept Phillip Rivers off the field yesterday, absolutely you're going to have a chance to not only stay in the game but maybe even pull out a victory in the end.
Ah, boy, that's going to be a tough assignment because Peyton Manning really didn't seem like he was on the field all that much last night against the San Francisco 49ers. He got into the end. They hardly had time last night on the telecast to promote the fact that he needed 3 touchdown passes for the all-time Brett Favre record.
He got 3 touchdown
He got the 3
passes.
touchdowns before I think they were done even promoting all of that. So, you're right, Ben. I mean, without any cornerbacks, Mike McCoy does have familiarity with Peyton Manning. He has familiarity with the Broncos. I think that's one of the reasons the Chargers played the Broncos so tough in 3 meetings last year. Mm-hmm. But, man, this is gonna be one whale of an assignment now without any of your key guys in the secondary.
All right.
Here's my out-on-a-limb prediction. The Chargers will at least force Peyton Manning to stay on the field the entire game, unlike what the 49ers did last night when he was able to comfortably watch from the sidelines for the entire fourth quarter.
All right. Well, since I've got both of you here, we might as well reach into our brown bag and grab a viewer question, see what you guys have to say about it. And let's go with this one that I just pulled out.
That's a good one.
That is a good one. It reads, this is from Greg Freed, who asked via Twitter, and I think this speaks to what we were just talking about. How do we fix the problems exposed by Kansas City and beat Denver? Not can we compete. How do we beat Denver? Greg, thank you for your question. Guys, what do you think? The problems that were exposed, I think, were the lack of depth because of injury, some offensive line issues like you mentioned, Ben. So how do you fix those in 3 days?
Well, the Chargers, to me, and I'll go first here, Chris, the Chargers have to take advantage when they get Denver into third and long situations. Hey, when Jamal Charles runs the ball, he's going to get 2-3 yards even on a bad carry most times. So when you get those 3rd and 5s, you got to get off the field. And if the Chargers had done that yesterday and not committed some dumb penalties like the Reggie Walker personal foul that extended drives, had come up with just a play or two, I guarantee you the Chargers would have ended up winning that game. So when the Chargers do get those situations, when the Broncos take a holding penalty and it's 2nd and 20, or the Broncos lose 2 yards on first down and it's 2nd and 12, the Chargers have to convert and get the Broncos off the field in those situations. They can't be giving up those 3rd and longs that keep you on the field, end up with field goals and touchdowns, and ultimately kill you at the end of the game.
I think one of the keys to the game on Thursday night in terms of winning the game is something we haven't quite mentioned yet, but it's you gotta beat as much as you can on the Aztec for life, Ronnie Hillman, who has all of a sudden become another weapon for the Denver Broncos. He was terrific last night against San Francisco, busted off a long touchdown run, had over 100 total yards, had 2 TDs in the game. Look, if you can't stop Peyton Manning, and it's going to be pretty tough to stop him with no cornerbacks, at least don't let Ronnie Hillman beat you either. I mean, at least make Peyton Manning one-dimensional. So I think that might be part of John Pagano's game plan. You're not going to put 10 people in the box, but the guys that are there on the defensive line, the guys that are healthy, that are playing, they're going to have to make sure Ronnie Hillman doesn't get loose and keep him down to a 30, 40-yard game, keep him out of the end zone, keep him away from being yet another weapon you have to worry about.
And to me, you mentioned the defensive line, and that's, I think, what my point is for being able to beat Denver this week is that defensive line. Alex Smith was able to escape the rush a couple of times. Yeah. He was fairly mobile. Peyton Manning is not fairly mobile. He likes to stand in the pocket. He doesn't exactly scramble well. So I got to think if you can get that kind of pressure, if you can actually hit Peyton a couple times, if maybe you bring in a blitz every now and then and disrupt some of those timing patterns, because that's what this offense is with Peyton Manning. It's a lot of timing patterns. It's kind of the next evolution, I think, of that West Coast offense where it's short passes for long gains. You praise accuracy. You count on timing to keep the ball moving and break big plays when you can get in space. If you can disrupt that timing, if you can disrupt Peyton Manning, I think you can keep that offense in check for a limited amount of time.
Hey, guys, you know where it's really tough to run the football? Here at the courtroom, because we put all 12 defenders in the box.
Wow.
Oh, that's pretty funny.
Wow.
You are hilarious. I bet you've been entertaining your fellow jurors with that kind of comedy throughout the entire stay there. In
I'm
Vista?
sure they can't wait to get away from me.
On that note, I think the verdict is in. Ben Higgins, thank you very much for coming on with us and taking some time out of your lunch break, your federally appointed lunch break since you're on jury duty, and spending it here on Bolts Brown Bag.
And Jared, thank you for sitting in that chair for me. Chris, thank you for coming in and doing a great job. Great guys. Enjoy the rest of the show.
Absolutely.
Always a pleasure.
Great, Ben. Thank you very much. And Chris, Ben made some pretty good points.
He's comical, that guy.
He is.
He's a funny guy.
I'm kind of impressed.
You know who else is funny is my wife, who's from Denver, and she's watching the game last night with me, and she loves the Broncos. And Peyton Manning goes back to pass, and he's looking around for a receiver, and he finally has to just throw the ball away because he couldn't find it. It didn't happen very often last night against the 49ers.
He had almost as many touchdown passes as incompletions last night.
Right. So she looks to me before the next play, and she goes, "Why doesn't he just run when he's back there? Why doesn't he just run when he's sitting?" The minute she said that, he tripped over the foot of his left guard and fell down. Do you remember that play? That was the second that she said, "Why doesn't he run?" I said,
That's why.
That's why.
That's why.
That's why. Yeah. So that's a good point. I mean, and you made it. You've got to harass him, and at least he's not as hard to get to as Alex Smith is.
I want to talk a little bit. We've talked, and everybody has been talking today about Peyton Manning and the milestone that he set, and deservedly so. I want to bring something up yesterday that I think got overlooked in the loss. Phillip Rivers' 2 touchdown passes yesterday moved him into 21st place all-time in NFL history in career touchdown passes. And I looked this up. Here are some of the names of quarterbacks, obviously a different era now than some of the ones that I'm going to read.
Sure.
But here are some of the people that he is ahead of in terms of career quarterback touchdowns. Joe Namath, Phil Simms, Terry Bradshaw, Steve Young, Kurt Warner, Jim Kelly, Randall Cunningham, Otto Graham, Sammy Baugh. These guys are all-time greats that he has surpassed in his run now of however many years it's been, where he has been one of the better, if not sometimes one of the top quarterbacks in the league. Where does this put him now? Because he's going to get, I think, 13th place is 255 touchdowns. He's got 239. So
that's about where he'll be by the end of the season.
2 touchdowns a game. That's about where he'll be by the end of the season. Where does this put him in terms of all-time quarterbacks, and can we start talking about him in that sense?
No, he's not in that discussion yet.
Okay.
I don't think. I mean, to me, if you're going to have a photo with all the greatest quarterbacks of all time, I think Phillip Rivers might be trying to peek in the
up
side.
above the bleachers
in
the back.
And it's nothing against Phillip Rivers. I mean,
Right.
we were talking about Montanas and Unitises, and you mentioned Otto Graham and Sammy Baugh. I mean, and the great ones that have ever played the game. Manning is definitely in that league. Brady is there. Rivers is going to have to win a championship before anybody's going to discuss him among those. I think he's one of the best going in the NFL right now, though. I mean, I still love to sit and watch him throw the football when he's having a game and he's on target. The way he can drop those passes into these tight little spots, it's remarkable. I don't think he's appreciated as much as he should be. I think he's one of the best in the league. I think he's having an MVP caliber season through 7 games.
And even yesterday when they had the ball, he was good with it. Not great, but
he had an all right game yesterday. But, yeah, if he plays the second half, the last 9 games, as he did the first 7, he's going to be in the discussion this year for an MVP. But when you're going to talk about the greatest quarterbacks of all time,
right.
Brett Favre won 3 MVPs. I mean, Dan Marino, Elway. I mean, you're going to have to really get up there in the higher echelon. And
can we say then, though, Dan Fouts, great Charger quarterback, is one of the people on that list that he may pass this year. Can we say maybe that Phillip Rivers might be the best quarterback in Charger history?
You can say that as long as Fouts isn't in the room. I think you could get away with that.
All I'm doing is posing the question,
He
Dan.
said it, Dan.
I'm just posing a question.
Yeah, he just said it. No, I think right now Fouts gets the nod. He's in the Hall of Fame. Rivers is not yet a Hall of Fame quarterback, but his final chapter has yet to be written. You brought up the quarterbacks and the touchdown passes. I read one this morning that Joe Montana and Steve Young together did not throw as many touchdown passes as Peyton Manning.
It's amazing to think about that.
So it's just so different at how the game is played now. I mean, you're going to have some guys. Rivers is going to be, what'd you say, 15th, 13th on this
13th
list
probably
or so
by the end of the year, and probably top 10 by the end of his
You're
career.
going to have some no-name quarterbacks that are in the top 25 if they last long enough in the NFL the way the game is played now.
That's a good point. That leads us to, we've got Ferris Tanios here with his 3 questions that we do every week here on Bolts Brown Bag. And Ferris, one of those questions is in regards to the greatest quarterback of all time. So let's start with that one. Your question as far as is Peyton Manning. I'll let you ask it. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, you just said it. Where does he rank on the quarterback hierarchy now that he passed Favre?
Is this up to me?
Well, I think we're all
both
chime
gonna
in.
give it
So
a shot?
we'll give you, yeah.
Can I answer for Ben, even though he's not here, because I know his answer?
I'll allow it.
Thank you. I'm going to tell you, Ben puts him number 1. We've talked about it before on our radio show. Ben thinks that Peyton Manning's the greatest quarterback who ever lived. I think you can make a case for it. Obviously, statistically, you can make a case for it. But let's go beyond the statistics. The preparation, the longevity, the ability, the wins, the games, 13, 14 wins every single season. I know Brady has the 3 Super Bowls, and that's what always gets compared. But Brady was on a little better team. He had a better coach. He had Bill Belichick. He's had a better team. And Brady's a tremendous quarterback in his own right. But I think Manning is in the top 5, and that's as high as I'll go right now. I can't go number 1 because I think it's too hard to quantify number 1.
And that's where I was going to go with this also, is I can't put anybody number 1. I think when you talk about guys now like Brady and Manning, you put them in that upper echelon where you may be able to differentiate one between the other. I'm willing to say right now that Manning is better than Marino, because he's got the Super Bowl ring and he's going to wind up breaking all of his records. Yeah. But when you're comparing even some of the guys that I read off,
I'm a Dolphin fan, so I'm not going to give you that one that quickly.
That's
he's
fine.
Better than Marino.
But how do you compare Manning right now, even to Montana of the early '90s, because the league is so different?
Well, let me throw this at you. Say you need one quarterback. You have a game-winning drive.
But to me, that's a different question.
And you need one quarterback. Well, let me switch it up a little bit.
All right.
You need one quarterback. Who are you taking?
Well, if it's one game-winning drive, see, the best I ever saw, we haven't even mentioned yet, is 2 guys, Roger Staubach and Kenny Stabler in the 70s when I was growing up with the Cowboys and the Raiders. I never saw those guys come up short in a 2-minute drive at the end of the game. They won every single time.
And to me, it's Montana for the same reason.
And Montana did that all the time. Brady is obviously almost impossible to stop. Aaron Rodgers is impossible to stop right now.
My only knock against Brady in that discussion is I've never seen him do a game-winning drive when they needed a touchdown in a big game. He's set up some great game-winning field goals, and I've had this debate with a lot of people. It's much rarer that you see him set up a game-winning touchdown drive, and I think part of that goes to your point that Brady had better teams. He had Vinatieri, he had Belichick. They had that defense with Teddy Bruschi and all of those things. What's your answer to either of these questions, then, Ferris?
I actually have to go with Brady.
Brady's your guy.
I have to go with
Brady.
Brady.
The best quarterback of all time.
And because I think if you asked Peyton Manning yesterday and you said, would you rather have Brady's 5 Super Bowl appearances and 3 Super Bowl rings over what you have right now, he would take that in a heartbeat.
Absolutely.
And I think that's what makes him. Obviously, like you said, better team around him. Yeah. But I still think
now Montana has 4 Super Bowl rings.
Montana's got 4, and
so
Bradshaw's got
4.
Or 4, and I love that argument, but I also think, well, there are some scrubs on those Boston Celtics teams of the 1960s that won 10 in a row. Are you going to say that one of those guys, because the 5th player on that team is better than Charles Barkley because he has 10 rings?
Yeah.
You can't always just look at the rings. I think you have to look at the whole scope of the career. Yeah. All right, what's your next question? I'm loving these. Let's keep going.
This one's very simple. As you know, the Seahawks lost yesterday 28-26 to the Rams. Saw one of the greatest special teams plays ever, probably.
Yes.
So what is wrong? They're 3-3 now. What's wrong with the Seahawks? And this is kind of 2 questions. And should they have traded Percy Harvin?
They had to trade Percy Harvin because he was becoming a distraction in that clubhouse, and distractions you've got to get rid of if you're going to have a chance. And I think Seattle right now probably lost that game in large part yesterday because of the whole Percy Harvin trade. But give them a couple of weeks. I think they'll get things back together. But what is wrong with the Seattle Seahawks can be answered by one man. One of the smartest men ever to grace the sports world.
Well, thank you. I'll answer it right now.
Okay.
Oh, wait.
No, because this man is no longer with us, and you are with us, thankfully.
All right.
But John Wooden, the all-time great coach, UCLA, said the following. To win a championship takes talent. Seattle has that. To defend your championship takes character. And I'm not so sure that the Seattle Seahawks have that.
Oh.
And I think that's one of the problems that the Seattle Seahawks have right now. I think they're still living on the laurels of last year's title. They're not playing anywhere near as well as they can. The special teams play aside yesterday, the fumble at the end of the game, which I think was ruled incorrectly by the referees, you can take that out. Do you know that Austin Davis, the Rams' rent a quarterback, only had 3 incomplete passes against the Seattle Seahawks vaunted defense yesterday? They're playing terrible football right now.
He's got a similar story to Kurt Warner.
That's right.
In that they basically pulled him off the street, and now he's leading an offense that, frankly, even last week should have beaten. Was it Dallas?
The 49ers.
Or the 49ers.
On the Monday night game.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it doesn't. I know this is getting to your next question also in terms of your next question that Ferris has is what's the most surprising or the best win from yesterday? And I know a lot of people want to say St. Louis. I didn't find that win so surprising. One, because of how Seattle is playing. 2, because St. Louis was at home. And then you look at the way Seattle's played in the weeks before. They've had to come back for wins. And dominant teams that don't lose or that shouldn't lose don't have to make comebacks like that. To me, the best win from yesterday was Kansas City. On the road, you controlled the game against a team that was on a 5-game win streak. That, to me, was the best win of the day yesterday.
Who'd they beat?
They beat
Anyone
San Diego.
Out there?
I think it was the Chargers.
I think it was the Chargers, too.
What was your best?
Can I answer my best? Oh,
yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Ferris.
Myself. I would have to say the Saints win. Or, I'm sorry, the Lions win over the Saints. They scored, 2 touchdowns in 3.5 minutes. They were without Calvin Johnson. I think that the Lions are 5-2.
Yes,
I don't think none of us thought they'd be 5-2. Matthew Stafford's playing very well. They haven't played very good teams, but I think that they're not necessarily in contender status yet, but they're kind of getting there.
Yeah, I'm not in love with the Lions because I'm not a Jim Caldwell coach fan. I'm not enthralled with him, but that was a nice win. I thought the most impressive win on the board yesterday was the one turned in by Green Bay. Just to absolutely annihilate a pretty decent Carolina team. I know it was at home, but 28-0 first possession of the second quarter, 35-3 at halftime, 38-3. I think Green Bay is establishing itself as one of the teams to beat in the NFC this year. I know we focus on the AFC and who would the Chargers have to beat. Well, look, the Chargers are going to have to find a way to beat out Denver. They're also going to have to find a way to beat this Indianapolis team, which had another impressive win yesterday, 27-0.
I was hoping you wouldn't even bring that up.
I mean, that game, Indianapolis, if Indianapolis can shut out Cincinnati, then Indianapolis is awfully good.
But how good? Cincinnati, I don't think is very good. I think that they're.
Well, they were the
I don't think
last.
they're very
This
good.
coming
I'm
from
a Bengals fan.
Well, they were the last undefeated team. The
They
Bengals
were.
were. They're no longer.
Only because they played later in the day than the Cardinals, who lost
That's
that
right.
same week.
Yeah.
But you mentioned the NFC. Not only do you have the Seahawks and you have the Packers and the Lions, the Cowboys are
They have the best
5-1.
record in football.
The Cowboys, the Eagles, the Cardinals all only have one loss. That is a very tough conference as a whole. There are going to be some really good teams left out of the playoffs in the NFC. And that's what is great about the NFL with their playoff structure right now is it is tough to get into it.
It's tough to get in, and good teams don't make it. Last year, the Cardinals didn't make it. They won 10 games.
At 10-6, we've got another Twitter question that we want to get to, and I will go with this one. Very simple question, and we chalked to it a little bit. Who was your brown bagger of the week? We mentioned Phillip Rivers. We mentioned some other players. To me, I'm going to go with my brown bagger of the week, Mike Cyphers. How about the punter?
You're going to go with Mike Cyphers.
How about,
that means the Chargers lost. That's what I was going to say. That's what normally happens. With all due respect to Mike Cyphers, that's normally what that means.
That usually you give it to a player like that when not much else goes right. But look, very quietly, he is becoming one of the best punters in the game right now. 57-yard average on punts yesterday, and they were punting a lot.
Oh, he's amazing.
Absolutely.
I mean, I don't think he's becoming one of the best punters in the league. I think he is one of the best and maybe the best punter in the league. I think it's one of the biggest shames that Mike Cyphers has not yet made a Pro Bowl. I don't know how they keep him out of the Pro Bowl every year. Shane Lechler used to get it every year in Oakland, but nobody controls the football the way that Cyphers does. When he needs distance and hang time, he can do that. When he needs to pin you inside the 10, he does that. I think he's one of the best punters I've ever seen. So I'll go along with you on Mike Cyphers as your brown bagger of the game.
Ferris, We're going to switch out seats with you. We're going to knock you onto the bench and bring in Brandon Chambers. This is Bolt's Brown Bag, and we like to have lunch at some point during this show. So thank you for your questions, Ferris. Brandon, come on in and tell us. We're here at the 10 News Cafe, so
that's
tell us
the only reason they got me down here today. It wasn't to hang out with you. It was to see Brandon and
we got to move some things out of the way so we can see this, because this looks great. Tell us about today's Chef's Choice.
Yes, today's Chef's Choice is the Asian salmon, sizzling salmon salad.
Ooh, wow.
And it's drizzled with sesame ginger dressing, and you have sliced carrots, broccoli, some baby corn, some mandarin oranges, celery.
You guys eat healthy at Channel 10.
Nice.
No wonder you guys are all in such good shape over here.
Yeah, we like to treat
Brandon,
our newscast.
you take care of your guys.
Now, if the Chargers had eaten this for their pregame meal, would they have won yesterday?
Yes, they probably would have ran a little bit lighter on their feet. So
right.
that probably would have helped them just a little bit.
I'm pretty sure the mandarin oranges would have put them over the top.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, you play football semi-professionally. Yes. We've talked about that before and on this show. From your view, what happens in a game like yesterday when you can't seem to get off the field and you can't seem to make that play? How do you fight that during a game?
It's all about momentum and that mojo. It's pretty much who wants it more, who wants to get off the field more, and who wants to win the game more. And the Chargers didn't really seem to show like they wanted it more, but they had opportunities to close it out. And I don't think they did it the way they should have done it, which was put it on the ground as a little bit more. And they tried to throw it and throw it and throw it, but the more you throw, the less you're on the field is how I see it. And the more you run the ball, it's going to take up and eat that clock. So I think they should have stuck with Brandon Oliver and just kept running that ball.
A Brandon sticking up for another Brandon. I can certainly understand that. But you know what? He's right about one thing. That was a desperate Chiefs team yesterday, too. People may forget this. They were in the playoffs last year, and they were 2-3 going into the game yesterday. If they'd lost that game, gone to 2-4, they would have fallen 3 games behind both Denver and the Chargers in the loss column. It might have been season over for the Kansas City Chiefs. Season's over for our Brown Bag.
But it might have been the Brown Bag has fallen out of the playoff race.
That was the Chiefs' season ending.
If they had lost.
Had they had lost.
Just over the cliff.
So, I think that's something that, you just kind of brought up. The Chiefs maybe just wanted it a little bit more than the Chargers. That happens sometimes. And
Brandon mentioned that the Chargers had a chance to close it out. It feeds us right directly into what Phillip Rivers said after the game. We have that soundbite about how his team just couldn't get it done when they had the chance. Let's take a listen, and we'll discuss in a sec.
To expect that we're going to go up and down the field and never punt and never, just win all the time is unrealistic. I thought this was an NFL game that we didn't play our very best. To give them credit, they had a lot to do with it. But hadn't felt like this in a while. You knew at some point there may be a bump in the road. Obviously, you never plan on it, but we gotta respond in a hurry.
He also added later, you look up, it's 20-17. We have the ball with 4 minutes to go. That's all you can ask for. And that's where also I think the offense, as we look at our poll and who's to blame for this loss, right now, 44% of the people who have voted said defense, 38% say injuries, 19% say penalties. Not a lot of people are blaming the offense, but remember, they did have the ball with 4 minutes to go, down by just 3, and all they could manage was a long field goal by Mike Novak.
First of all, I want to thank everybody. I don't have any votes yet. Nobody's blamed me for the loss yet, so thank you very much. Secondly, this is an interesting thing that you'll hear a lot of quarterbacks and offenses talk about. You mentioned the Chargers got the ball down by 3 with 4 minutes to go. I remember a story that Eli Manning told after they beat and upset the undefeated New England Patriots in the Super Bowl several years ago. That game, the Giants got the ball back with about 3 minutes to go, but they were trailing by 4 points. And Eli Manning said, it's actually easier to get the ball back when you're trailing by 4 points.
There's more of that sense of
Because
desperation.
you need a touchdown. Right. There's no argument about it. You've got to get a touchdown. You're going to take all 4 downs. You're not going to kick on 4th down. You're going to go for a touchdown. So getting the ball back down by 4
is a lot different.
A lot of time is a better situation than getting it down by 3, because in the back of your mind, and I'm not saying the Chargers did this yesterday, you might say, hey, we can play for the field goal and tie it up.
And had they been down by 4, and you look at that 3rd down when they didn't convert, and then went, I think it was 3rd and 2.
Right.
They didn't convert. They went for the field goal. Maybe they would have gone for it.
They would have definitely had to gone for it.
And potentially got it and kept the ball for they still would have had about 2 minutes
That's right.
left.
So it's something to
who
think
knows what
about.
they could have done at that point. Well,
Something to think about.
we are just about wrapping up. We're a little bit over time already, and we try
Brandon's
to go a half
food is
hour
out of
to-
my reach.
Brand-
Can we do something about
slide
that?
We'll
your
move
way
this over to you.
There we go.
Brandon,
Okay.
thank you very much for
Thank
joining
you.
us on Bolts Brown Bag. And thank you all for joining us on Bolts Brown Bag. Let's get one final thought from Chris about going into Denver right now this week, and we'll wrap it up with your final thoughts.
Well, I like the Chargers this year, and I think to like the Chargers this year means that they're going to go into Denver and be able to beat the Broncos. They're going to have to handle a team that won the division a year ago and is the championship team coming out of the AFC. However, without Jason Verrett, without Brandon Flowers, with all of the injuries, this really is one of those games. The timing couldn't be worse. The timing just could not be worse. To me, the Chargers have a season ahead of them after this Denver game. There's 8 games beyond it. They're going to have to get a little healthier, and I think the Chargers are going to be a much better team in late November, December than unfortunately they are right now. So I don't see how they get it done in Denver just because they don't have enough players to stop Peyton Manning.
Well, we will all have to watch on Thursday night. Thank you guys for joining us. And again, thank you for joining us on Bolts Brown Bag. We'll be back here on Monday at 12:30, same time next week, to talk about the Chargers and the Broncos. Until then, charge on.